All right, let's get a move on here. 2026 North America Cup show here on Into the Money Media Live. How live is it? I'm here. It's me. Hi. Help. Send help. I am stuck in a podcast. I'm just kidding. Everyone loves podcasts. So this is the Harness Players podcast, a live roundtable for the 2026 North America Cup, sponsored by a very prominent beverage, one that pays Mohawk and not us. So I'll leave you to figure out which beverage that could be. We, of course, have a riveting panel here for this live discussion. We're going to be taking a look at the stakes races on the North America Cup undercard, including the $1 million race itself, going as race 11 on Saturday, June the 13th, in the year that this whole show started in. Well, I mean, this show's been around for a while, but I just said 2026 at the start. That's the year this is. That's the year of the North America Cup, but I think it's like the 43rd. I'm going to waste no more time here because we have a lot of action to talk about, and I know that Mikey P would get irritated if I said anything else, as well as the two people also waiting in the wings here on this roundtable. We have John Rallis of, I can't really say you're of anything anymore because really there's nothing that you do not do. But we do have Adam Bowden as well of Diamond Creek Farms. And before I introduce anyone else, Adam Bowden of podcast fame himself. I think it's so funny, Adam. No matter what careers we try to do, it's like we all funnel back into podcasting one way or another. But you guys are doing some pretty interesting stuff on this new season of Creekside Chat. I wanted to shout that out before we get started.
Yeah, Mike's repping the shirt. We were filming today, actually, for some content for the rest of the month. But yeah, we're talking about individual question, or we're just popping individual questions on the screen and kind of going back and forth with Sean and I. So it's been fun so far, and hopefully we're going to put some guests on here soon.
Yeah, and of course you can find episodes of Creekside Chat. That's at the Diamond Creek Farm YouTube, which I believe is as simple as just typing Diamond Creek Farm into YouTube. Like that's pretty simple, right?
Mm-hmm. I hope so.
Just on our YouTube also. I want to ask: are we going to see the first crop of Confederate selling this fall, though, Adam?
Yeah, we are, and you know, I can only speak from what I've seen, but we're pretty excited. We've got I think 8 or 9 that we're going to sell, and we're keeping another 8 or 9 to race ourselves. So pretty excited.
Well, and this, of course, with Confederate in mind, a bit of a bittersweet night, but still exciting night of racing, I have to imagine, for you, Adam, for the North America Cup.
Yeah, what was it, 3 years ago? And there's a TV, I probably shouldn't say this, but there's a TV upstairs at Mohawk that didn't work at the end of that race. So
that still reassured the notion that he was the best colt in the division.
Yeah.
And I mean, that who else did that on a big race day, Adam? Daniel Redden. When Allegiant ran off in the Elite Lup, decided to give a gobsmacker to a TV. The only difference is you didn't take a photo op with it. I thought that was.
I should have. Yeah, well, I was a little. It was an 8.5 hour drive, and I think I was out the door, you know, before Scott got back to the winner's circle with the winner. So I was on the road, and it maybe only took me 6.5 hours to get home. So.
Ooh.
Pedal to the metal. Yeah. This time we're coming up and going to enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, we also there's a lot more for Diamond Creek to enjoy inside of that race as we get there. Of course, also happy to have John Rallis on, someone who everyone describes as no one could be hotter. I would like to contest that, though. I am with the broadcasting booth I'm in right now. Some would say it's an office. Is currently my body temperature is cooler than the office, so I would like to contest that I am in fact a little bit hotter than John Rallis, if that's possible. And I hope, John, that you don't take any offense to that.
Whoa. Let's keep that shirt on.
That's as far as I'm going.
He's done that before.
That's as far as I'm going, but I feel like with John around, I'm safe to do it.
And don't tell Buck Swope that.
Don't tell pull the pocket either. He loves him some Rallis. So I'm sure he's putting it in. Anything you do.
Oh, everyone does. It's been so long. We've been trying to get John on everything we do, but he says, "Sorry, guys. You know, I'm I'm too big for all of you now. I have a first class charter over to Sweden for the Elite Love. I got to go hang out with Brett Beckwith, you can hang out with him in America at any time. You don't got to go to Stockholm for that.
It's a lot of fun over there. The culture is great, and the racing was even better.
And Mike, everyone knows who you are, so we can just kind of get started here with the show. First stake we're going to talk about, race number 3 on this Saturday card at Woodbine Mohawk Park. Again, that is Saturday, June the 13th, 2026. The Good Times Final, race that used to be one of the first stakes races on the Hambletonian Trail, and until a pesky little new $500,000 trotting race came around. But people know what that is, and know that the runner-up of that race is probably going to win the Hambletonian. Out of this race, though, it's been kind of mercurial in a conversation we're having with Bowden. I like that use of that word. This has been a mercurial race when it comes to just the 3-year-old trotting division in general. Mike, if you remember a few years ago, this was a race where Steve Byron was able to pull off like one of the biggest upsets I remember on North America Cup night with a horse whose name I cannot remember. But part of the reason why is form-wise, you have 4 horses that seem competitive and a bunch of horses that seem like they're on the fringe. Is this a race that truly plays that way?
I think that, I do think the top ones are going to separate themselves. I picked Touched by an Angel, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if the horse was 4th in this race. So you have Magic Punk, you have Touched by an Angel, you have Naver Punt. Yeah, I got to get that right. And those 3 are most likely going to dominate the wagering in here. And Strobe Light, I thought, raced very well also in the elimination. Definitely did more work, was aggressive. Now we'll see. I mean, against the rail, I think that is extremely tricky for that post. I picked Touched by an Angel because I think that the post is much better now. I hopefully can get that trip that has been lacking recently. So, 2-1, 2.5, take your pick between the top 4.
John, the pair of elimination winners from the Good Times Elims definitely looked eye-catching. Magic Punk couldn't have done it any easier, even though he had to make 2 moves in that race. He just kind of cantered to the finish. Naver Punt had to do some work, but was able to catch Touched by an Angel, who himself seems to be trending in a good direction here. Are you kind of siding with those, or has there been any others that maybe caught your eye in this race?
I have a tough time believing that Magic Punk is probably going to lose this race. I mean, he just did it so effortlessly. Look, I think what we've seen from some Åke Svanstedt trainees is that their horses kind of have a tendency at times to qualify, rather lackluster. And we saw that leading up to that Dexter Cup. And he put forth a wicked stretch rally. I mean, he had no business winning that race to capture the Dexter Cup after what I thought was a pretty poor qualifying try. What did he do as he geared up for his Good Times elimination? He was coming off another lackluster, qualifying effort. I know he was in with some good colts, but this is a pretty damn good colt himself. And the fact how easy he did it, making multiple moves in the process, drawing away under wraps for driver Yannick Gingras, I really do think it's going to be awfully tough to beat him in this spot. I don't want to go shopping, but it's not like he had everything with ease. He made multiple moves, like I said, and just drew away from the rival. So I'd be looking for some value player underneath and some exactors, but I think Magic Punk is a lock in this race.
You don't take anything, though, into the fact that Gingras was able to fish a perfect trip by virtue of Strobe Light having to do all of that work, because the horse he's peeling away from already had to make a pretty big move himself.
Oh, I put nothing away from it. I just recall his Dexter Cup race that he had no business winning and making a vicious stretch rally. So we've seen him be able to overcome, tough trips. And this was a trotter was a little bit under the radar last year, even as a 2-year-old. I mean, everybody talked about the big 3, deservedly so. He was a colt who raced really, really tough against the likes of the Apex and some other talented trotters, because he's a really talented trotter himself. I got a chance to speak with, Sarah Svanstedt of Team Svanstedt, even in that post-race interview for the Dexter Cup. And she said, look, he's top 3 in our barn in terms of the 3-year-old trotting colt. So high praise for Magic Punk. And look, maybe we don't get some of the cream of the crop in terms of the top trotters in the division. But mind you, Åke Svanstedt didn't get a chance to compete, at Ray Cotolo's place at Oak Grove in that trotting derby. So, the first couple of races for him just to kind of get his feet wet as he hopes for, the second Saturday in August for some big, for a big performance. I think he's going to put forth a really big performance here on Saturday night. And I think there's a reason why Yannick Gingras went his direction as well.
John, do you think he could do it in back-to-back weeks, though? I mean, because isn't that the question?
Without a doubt, I can. But like I said, I mean, I just think he draws really, really well. Look, I thought Strobe raced, fine. There was nothing, exceptional about his performance. I didn't think anything poor. He just raced solid. Nothing more than that. But I mean, you mentioned Touched by an Angel. I think he raced really, really well. I mean, he deserved a lot better. He took a lot of air. Ever since they gelded him, because he was a colt last year, his efforts weren't consistent. This is a trotter who's no good on the front. He's much better when he's chasing horses. But ever since they've gelded him, his attitude is so much better, and he wants to kind of take that speed a little bit further. But again, you give him a target to chase, he shows that he can do the work, and he showed that in that elimination. He deserved a lot better than a runner-up finish.
I'm in agreement with Touched by an Angel. I feel like just the trip might be able to work out a bit better, especially with this draw versus having post 7 in the elimination. But Adam, I guess the button to this, you got 4 horses on these morning lines below 6-1, everyone else forced into double digits. Do you kind of lean in the same direction of the Svanstedt Power, or do you think one of the other runner-ups might be able to break through?
No, I mean, it's obviously hard to go after John because he said it so right. But like Magic Punk, Yannick, he wins both eliminations, ends up on this horse. That probably seals the deal. Now, the Naver Punt ends up picking up Dexter, which I guess if you're going to enter a final is about as good as you can get for a pickup driver. But I kind of liked Strobe Light in the elim, and James is driving about as well as he could possibly be right now. So, Magic Punk's, I think, going to be the favorite. He likely gets the best trip. And I think they're a little bit more conservative with Strobe Light in the final. And maybe he ends up lucking out with the right trip. So I think for a number, that's kind of where I'm going to land. Go against the favorite.
I think it's interesting what Adam said as well. Like, I think we will probably see a different trip from Strobe Light, not only because he draws the rail. This is a horse that's so much better racing off the pace, but we saw James do something we normally don't see with Strobe Light as he moved him aggressively. Look, there was a chance that he could have gotten hung out there at that point in the mile when he did decide to move. He was lucky to clear, but I think there was a method to his madness with James McDonald trying to be a little bit more aggressive with his OSS trotter, and I think it had a lot to do with the fact that, look, he had exactly in the other elimination. We've seen drivers do this in the past. You want to drive horses a certain way to just see what they have exactly, because exactly the trotter that Steve Boston sent out, he was a former Marcus Melander pupil that sold to Steve Boston's. He did some really good things at Woodbine Mohawk Park in a few starts. Unfortunately, he did make a miscue behind the gate, but I'm not convinced if both make the final in the good times. I'm not convinced James would have gone to Strobe Light, in my opinion, even if he was his provincial drive. So I think the approach was interesting from James with this Ben Bayarjean trainee, because I think he probably wanted to see just what he had. But in terms of value players, I do think Dream for Peace, I don't know if anyone else agrees, I do think he's definitely one that people shouldn't be sleeping on. I think he can get a big piece of this on Saturday night.
I personally liked Royal Captain more of the fringe ones than everyone else. The moment he stepped onto the track, the way he moved, all these Captain Corys, they move so smoothly and nicely. Probably being on the lead and going those types of fractions second start off the bench wasn't for him. Does he win the race? I don't really think so, but I thought he took a big step forward, and that outside draw is probably going to make Tyler Jones want to be aggressive, and maybe that's a horse for the exotics.
Yeah, but that's not the trip in this race. That's grave. Here.
If he gets to the lead, someone quarter moves on him, you sit for a check. That could be pretty good.
No, I think John's horse is a better look, especially coming from off the pace. And Stacy has him ready for finals. That's a horse that can can get into the try at a big price. And you get Mark McDonald.
If you guys have liked Strobe Light in the OSS and some of those OSS golds in the SBOA, Dream for Peace, watch his efforts. He should have won a couple of those races. I think that's a trotter that's going to be winning a gold this year. I think he's inching closer and sitting on a big effort, and I thought his elimination was strong as well.
We'll move forward to the next stakes final on this North America Cup card. We got 11 in the Armbro flight. It's the 7th race. It starts the $100,000 guaranteed pick 5. Another big wager that's special to the North America Cup card we'll be talking about in a few races time. So keep an ear out for that. It's got a pretty high minimum too for people trying to look for wagers that have a bit more potential. Especially with these stakes races. I'm really excited for that. But this is a weird race because I think this mare trotting division, I mean, Warwi Michelle has her laurels still, but she's a bit of a question mark here. First time as a 5-year-old, scratch sick from the debut over the sloppy track on his versatility. You can maybe read more into that given those conditions, whether that sick scratch really means much inside of a race like this. But Adam, I think even more curiously, you have Yo Tilly coming in off of a runner-up finish at Oak Grove, where Andrew Harris said that she was potentially sick. And then you have a bunch of horses that you have one that's coming out of a Nauers at 2,500 into a $200,000 stake. This is a division that is real interesting to start off their season.
Yeah, I think what was it? A Perfect Annie beats Yo Tilly at Oak Grove, maybe the biggest upset of the year so far. I would suspect that Yo Tilly's going to be much better. But Svanstedt can do this with these horses off long breaks, maybe better than just about anybody else. Take a horse that's been off for 4 or 5 weeks, even off a 6 scratch, and a filly like that has the back class. She's going to be tough, and she always seems to race well in these spots where maybe she's not the top choice. He finds a trip for her. She's going to be coming late. Yo Tilly will be on the lead, and the question is whether they can track her down or not. And probably if I'm putting up a bunch of money, I'd go with Yo Tilly, but for a number, Warwi Michelle would be a good choice.
And the problem I kind of have, at least at this point in time, John, because we don't have any odds in front of us, is how hard does Warwi Michelle get bet first start off the bench? Because I feel like that's becoming a growing consensus that people, what Adam said, that people understand Ox Svanstedt has these horses ready off of the bench. This mare hasn't raced since her 3rd place finish in the FanDuel behind MM's Dream and Bravo Angel, but won the Breeders' Crown here at Mohawk. Has the resume to make her the leader of the division, even without a start on the 5-year-old season. But what price do we think she goes? I
think she's still going to get a lot of support here in this effort just because of the mare that she is and just because of the post that she draws. And also what Adam said, the barn that she hails from. Look, I mentioned it with some other horses too. For whatever reason, you see some Oka Svanstedt trainees, they'll qualify well and maybe not show up as sharp in some of their pari-mutuel outings, but they'll qualify rather lackluster and show up sharp in their pari-mutuel outings. So it's a barn kind of tough to figure out if you want to assess what you see in terms of tighteners. And obviously what we see in the program is a stale date and a 6 scratch. Now, I got a chance to speak with Sarah Svanstedt just before we hopped onto this podcast, and the scratch sick was as a result of a bit of a high temperature. So they would have liked to have a start under her belt leading up to the Stormborough Flight final. And you know what? They understand it's start number 1 this year. They understand it's going to be a long campaign for this aged trotting mare, but they also know that she's done it in the past where she's got the class and the ability, even if she might not be at 100%, that she's going to be able to put forth an effort that's going to be good enough to win. So again, would I be going all in on a Warwi Michelle? Without a doubt, I wouldn't be. But there's plenty of reason, that this mare merits a lot of respect in this spot. And I did ask her, is the plan to go barefoot or race shoes? They said they do want to race her with shoes on Saturday night. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well.
Mike, this reminds me of our Borgata podcasts back when Coach's Corner hit that snag as one of the series leaders. And you kept saying, when the horses have shown a vulnerability, I don't want any part of them. I want to try and fish for a price. I have a feeling that you might have your eye on some others since Warwi Michelle. It's her first start back, and Yo Tilly has to prove, not only as a 4-year-old, but off of that defeat to a Perfect Annie, that she's up to the task against these mares. Is that how you're looking at this?
100%. No Warwi Michelle. I love her as a horse. I mean, we had her when she won, the Hambo Oaks at a price. I had her last year when she won the Breeders' Crown. She was fantastic, but this isn't the spot you want to take her whatsoever in here. I mean, you're going to get a short price, and if she beats you, fine. Like, she's sick. She's coming in. They have other goals this year. So this isn't a horse you ever want to get involved with in a race like this. So my first pitch would be that horse. Now, the thing about Yo Tilly is she has recency, she has speed, so she has a pace edge over these horses. And I do think that the fact that they're showing up in this spot tells me that she's going well, because there's other spots that they can go with this horse. And so I like the fact that they shipped here. She's going to be in front. She's going to need to get caught. And there's horses that just are so inconsistent. Horses like the 7, like the 8, that really they don't class up to her. I just think that this could be, her stepping stone into this older division here. So I do like her, but I would use others. Like, I'm interested in Champagne Proms a little bit from the 10 post. Now, I know it's tough. That's a tough post, and she, she broke last time. She's got a ton of back class to her also. She always kind of finds her way onto tickets. You get Scotty Z here now. I just think that some of the other ones I can't trust. I'm interested in Champagne Problems at a huge number. I do think that exact is going to pay very well if she finds her way into the ticket. So she would be one that at a price I want to use.
I mean, I'm in agreement that Yo Tilly can definitely step forward inside of a race like this. She has the ability. Did I hear you right that you want nothing to do with Bravo Angel in that race?
No, I have Bravo Angel. I think that
okay.
I think she can win, but I just think that she's, another one that's a little inconsistent. And right now she's in raging form. You can't really fault her there, but she's an outside post. I don't know what kind of trip she's going to get. She's certainly not going to get her usual front end trip with the 6 inside her. So does she land in the pocket? I don't know. She could get roughed up.
I think she's been sharp, though. I think that we've seen a little bit of a different dimension from her this year in a good way. She's been very unlucky last year. She was really, really sharp, and I don't think anybody talked about her as much as they should have. And I think what I've noticed from guys like Jason Bartlett is this year, I think they finally realized that, hey, this mare can be a top contender in this division. Let's, try and put her in play. Let's drive her as such. And, the trip didn't work out last time out with Walsby, putting forth a big mile and what was an off track. But I think a Bravo Angel, I think this is a really good mare. But I do agree with you. I think the draw really sets up for, a mare like Yo Tilly to put forth a big effort, or at least, be in a winning spot.
I've also just loved the kick that Bravo Angel has shown so far in her 6-year-old season. I give her a huge mulligan. That track at Meadowlands was puddles everywhere. Elisa Hanover slipped, and then Annie Sobey said, I'm not racing my other horse that night. So maybe Bravo Angel couldn't race as well because of just what the surface was. I don't really mind post 8. I think she can float out, take a peek, find a helmet. If she's second up, then the big question there is, can her kick collar whatever Yo Tilly has to offer?
And she's a speed. I mean, she's gonna. I don't know. I'd be curious.
I think she can work it. And Engblom's barn has been on fire this season. Stormont Beautiful, I think, is also an interesting one, especially after that. Was she second or third in the Breeders' Crown last year?
I believe third.
She was third, still flying home.
Actually, but.
Well, she looks perfectly primed for an okay effort. There is a class question, but with that pylon draw, she should at least be able to work into that stocking spot. And whether she has enough or not against this group, I think you would just hope that she's over 15-1 or something. Maybe she is, maybe she's not because of some of the other class questions inside of that race. We're going to move on to the next stake. It's right after the Armbro flight. It's race number 8. The Grade 1 Roses Are Red final, $320,000 the purse. This is a solid matchup. Maybe a little less exciting based on the debut of Twin B Joe Fresh. Just seemed a little flat off of a helmet in her debut, but that's not been unusual for when she's coming back from stale dates. John, first things first. I mean, what do you think Twin B Joe Fresh does stepping forward? Because obviously we know how good she can be, but her stablemate Mikee and Minnie's no slouch. And speaking of Engblom, he's got Louise Girl in here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna. I think we'd be remiss or foolish, obviously, to try and downplay the talent, and we know obviously the resume that Twin B Joe Fresh has. But look, she put in a couple of steps in post sprayed. She wasn't pacing as great. Throughout that mile, at least from my vantage point. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. And she just really didn't have it given the trip that she worked out. And look, I got a chance to ask Chris Ryder after Mikee and Minnie won her elimination. And he just said, a mare that needed a start. She's going to have to really step up in a big way in the final. But unfortunately, she drew post 9. But if there's anyone who can overcome it, it's definitely her. And look, we're going to get a solid price on a mare that otherwise has dominated this event in recent years and has the talent to beat this group if she's at her best. The question is, though, is she at her best right now? And I'm going to have to play against her in this spot, because some other mares I thought put forth pretty good efforts in their eliminations.
What price do you think you get, John, on the 9?
I really do. I honestly do think she'll probably go off. I would have to say I really do think she'll go off around 4-1 in this spot. I think around her morning line.
I would probably need 15 off of that performance.
Well, you're asking me what price. I'm not saying I would take her at 4-1. You're asking.
I know. I'm responding with you're giving me the reality. I'm responding with the handicapping part of it, and you clearly agree.
Yeah, it's tough to really look. She could bounce back in a big way. It wouldn't shock me. But again, there are some other mares that put forth some tough efforts, and this is going to be a really, really tough race. And it's going to be tough because of who's going to be starting from the rail. Skywalker C is not an easy mare to handle. I think Austin Hanners has done as good of a job trying to navigate this mare. And look, she was an under the radar player last year in the Breeders' Crown, right? I mean, she put forth a good elimination performance. She put forth a really good effort in the final. She won a huge mile a few starts ago this year, but she's not easy, and she's getting a new pilot. So I'm curious to see, the job that Todd does with her, from the inside. But there's some speed in some of these. There's some speed from some of these mares that they're going to be showing early on. But there's also some other horses I think you can probably discount just by virtue of where they're going to get away early on.
I mean, what do we make of Mikee and Minnie in this spot? Because we always talk about the 4-year-old year being the transition year into these age groups. Mike, I know you were not really looking forward to betting her, but is part of that also because she's going to figure to take money off that elimination win?
She's going to take a ton of money. She might be the favorite in here.
I hope she is. One too, and that was a really big mile she went, so she's going to take money.
Yeah, and I like her a lot. I like Louis Girl. I mean, whenever we did the Philly show, Edison, I think, hooked up with Perry Engblom and said that she tied up in that final for the Ursula McIntyre. So that's how she lost there. Prior to that, she was nearly unbeatable at Yonkers. She bounced back with a nice Philly effort. And she came up here and won a 26-1 third quarter to win. Now, I know she almost got picked off by 100-1 shot late, but I don't care because the fact that she showed up here, got the big track, put in a huge mile, she belongs with these horses. And I'm hoping that she's the second choice in here because she's incredibly sharp. I think she's very versatile. She can do it any sort of which way. And she could get lost between the Mikee and Minnie and the Twin B Joe Fresh in here. What if she's the third choice? I'll take her all day long in here. So, yeah, and maybe, you might get the talk that she almost got beat last time by the huge long shot. But, the race was over at that point. So give me Louis Girl back in here. I just think that she's the sharpest right now, and she's the one that I want.
I think Louis Girl being the third choice in this race is as likely as Twin Beach Joe Fresh winning. But Twin
Beach Joe Fresh has a lot of fans. He takes a ton of money. So, she was bet to $1.30 last week. So, she'll take one.
I don't. Louis Girl, just with the amount of form she has, so many of these others with the 9 draw for Twin Beach Joe Fresh, no less. That second start, I just don't see her really being second choice inside of this race. What I really like, I'm curious, Adam, if you feel the same way, because you were already praising James McDonald. I've always said James McDonald's a top 3 driver on the planet, and people don't agree with me on this. But what I'm really wondering is if Mikee and Minnie has so much, like we've always known that she's a good horse, but James gave her that typical unsuspecting James drive of, I'm going to get the lead, I'm going to sit back, not even raise the stick, I'm going to win by as much as I need, and from here she gets a great draw. Is this a time, because she's always odds on in her 3-year-old races? Do you think that this could be a race where she's a good bet as a 4-year-old?
I don't know that you're going to get a lot of value. I think she's likely the favorite in my mind. I'm like you. Twin B Joe Fresh will be way over bet, coming off injury. She's 6 now. I know from experience racing these good fillies in the past, the older they get, the longer they take to get back to form. And if you're coming off injury, and again, she wasn't all that sharp last week. Like, to me, she was a absolute throwaway. I'd let her beat me. The last Martini I thought was pretty good last week. If you're going to try to play something underneath, I actually liked the 101 shot to be on the ticket. Again, probably coming from the sky, but I've always been a huge fan of Mikee and Minnie, and she's by her stallion, always be Mikee. So we've got a rooting interest there. But like you said, James couldn't have done a better job in the elim, putting her in the right spot and doing just enough. Probably didn't get anywhere near the bottom of her, and I think she wins. And then I'd take these other ones underneath. And as hot as Pear has been recently, I'm probably a bet against with his filly in this one.
Okay. Yeah, I was saying to Mike before we hopped on, I have a feeling from post 3, Louis Girl might land in a spot where she has to go that type of tough trip again. And if she almost gets picked off by an Always Dawn, I think there's a difference between that happening in an elimination and in a final. I think she's going to have a lot more competition coming at her in a final. Don't you, Mike?
It's hard to say. I'd like to. Could she get a tougher trip than she got? I don't know.
I agree with Mike. I mean, look, that was Bartlett came on record saying it wasn't. I believe he did, saying that it wasn't like his best steer. He didn't give her an easy steer, but she overcame it. And look, she had a license to get tired. Mike touched on it a couple of times already. That was a 26 and change third quarter. That was her first time on the big track here in North America. Again, this was a mare who was, racing on smaller tracks. So the fact that she was still able to draw away after that slugfest of a third quarter, still open up enough of a lead. Yeah, she was getting tired, but she's supposed to get tired. The fact that she overcame that trip, to me, speaks volumes about the kind of mare that she is. And I think that being on the big track for a second consecutive week is only going to benefit not only her, her driver having a lot more confidence in her. And I think he'll be able to navigate a much easier trip as well. So I don't think you can penalize Louise Girl for nearly getting picked off when that was the first time that she got a chance to stretch her legs on a bigger stretch and still being able to prevail. So, give me Louise Girl in this spot. I think she draws well. And I think Mikee and Minnie, we know she's good on with a target. Yeah, she's going to be awfully tough without a doubt. But I think that Louise Girl is going to be handled, with confidence and for good reason. But Adam obviously touched on the last Martini. For whatever reason, we see her put forth some lackluster efforts in the U.S., efforts that aren't, eye-catching, and she shows up to Canada and she bounces back in a big way. So that was a really good elimination performance by her as well.
Well, I think I just don't want Louise, because even if Louise Girl's the second choice inside of this race, I think she's 5-2 then at that point.
It's a great price. What's wrong with that?
That's the difference of opinion.
That's an amazing. I think that's an amazing price. She was even money in her elimination and went a great, a really tough trip. I'm with Mike on this one. I don't know why we want to be too hard on her for her effort.
Well, I think this more so speaks to my impression of what Mikee and Minnie can have to offer against this division, especially Louise Girl being that small of a horse, like very hardy and gutsy to go that type of performance. But I feel like that adds up over time, especially in a big race like this where you're going to see even hotter fractions. If Bartlett,
I don't think she gets an easy trip, John. She's likely on that. I don't think she's going to get an easy steer. And yes, she beat Twin B Joe Fresh and the rest of that group last week, but this is a much, much tougher field, I think, than she's ever faced. And it's a big track. And these little fillies on the big track the second time, I don't know. It's a little hard on them.
I spoke on Skywalker C being a potential wild card. Her just pushing up from the rail and just being a little bit tricky to drive. I think we're going to see her be aggressive. I don't see Talk Hurdy to Me, Always Dawn, Absolution. I think those three will definitely not be getting themselves involved, but I think we have to probably factor in a mare like Grit and Grace, who loves to be handled aggressively and loves to be put in play early on. To me, one of the bigger wild cards, the last Martini, I think we can all agree is likely going to be aggressively handled, especially from that draw. I'm really curious to see what Rodeo Drive Dale is going to do, because she didn't get handled with confidence last week. I really, really wanted to pick her in this race, and I might end up regretting it. I will definitely be using her in the business, but the fact that Always Dawn out kicked her, that to me kind of pegged her down a couple of points. But this is a spot with her draw, especially the last couple of trips. It just, I got a chance to interview Ron Burke, and he wasn't necessarily happy with the trip at Chester, obviously, and he's a guy who obviously wants his horses handled aggressively. I think off that a limb with a middle of the gate draw, I think that Yannick could be sending her out of there from the middle of the gate. So I think there could be a lot of levers which could maybe add a wrinkle in this race. But look, Jason Bartlett, speaking of confidence, it came on record. Chris Ryder talked about how he was going to give the drive to Jason Bartlett on Mikee and Minnie. Now, James McDonald ends up being listed on that mare. I would assume it's because the conversation took place. I don't know for sure, but I would assume that he probably wanted to commit to Louise Girl just because he knew how talented she could be, how much success he's had. So then James McDonald gets the drive. So it was in a DRF article as well where Chris Ryder committed to Jason Bartlett. So I think that speaks volumes about what he thinks of this pairing Blom training.
Well, and also Jason drives pretty much all pairing Blom trainings.
But he'll book off pairs horses if he feels like another one's better. He's done that over the last couple of months.
Oh, okay. Drama in the backside, I guess. The last point, and then I guess we have to wrap on picks because we never really established any beyond my Mikee and Minnie in this race. John, I thought one of the interesting data points from Saturday, and I only extend on this because I think it impacts our North America Cup conversation later in the show. The deluge of rain comes through, and even before the day started, I believe there was also rain that came through, and the track had like a little bit of clumps and stuff to it, but they were going really fast. But I felt like you were seeing mixed performances from horses. Like some horses, it looked like they were kind of laboring over that track. Others were still able to zip around. But you have horses like Always Dawn at 100-1, even odds on Mr. Mamba, who we know is a really nice horse no matter what. When they were going to that wide side of the track, they were really picking up ground. Do you think that's anything we need to think about in how we're now analyzing these races? Do you think the inside maybe was a bit stiffer than those outside paths on Saturday?
I don't know about that per se, but I think that even maybe Adam can also chime into this. I mean, with the rain coming in, the track got really, really hard. So if there were some horses who just deal with some sore feet at times throughout the night, I definitely think that definitely, had a bit of an impact and definitely played a role in some of those races. When we got that torrential downpour, it only lasted about 20 minutes, but there was a lot of rain that came down. So, Adam would probably know a little bit better than me, but, just kind of hearing some of the chatter, getting a chant from Randy Waples and some, other horse people, that was not necessarily a track after that rainstorm that maybe benefited some horses that, struggle with some feet issues at times.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
I don't know if there was any more to it than that, but I think it's especially interesting when we come to talking about the North America Cup. But we got through 3 stakes races already. Race 8, it starts at $5. John, the $5 Woodbine All Stakes Pick 5, Roses Are Red, Fan Hanover, North America Cup. Those are the 3 legs, $5 minimum. Huge, considering a lot of people say we like the low minimums, the higher minimums. If you can connect, you're going to make a pretty decent buck, especially in some of these races. I even think North America Cup, especially if there's a big upset, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That high minimum is definitely going to make that thing pay quite well. You see it in the $3 pick 3s that Keeneland does, the Santa Anita does, that all these other places do. But just to maybe add some fodder for that bet, I like Mikee and Minnie inside that race. John, your final pick in that Roses Are Red?
I'm going to Louis Girl, but it should be correction. It's a $5 pick 3.
Pick 3. Did I keep saying pick 5?
Yeah, pick 5. It's a pick
I had $5 on the brain.
That would be more fun.
And keep in mind, 15% take, but it's actually a separate bet. So you have to, there's going to be a separate ADW strictly for that $5 pick 3 minimum. So it'll be available on all ADWs that carry Woodbine Mohawk Park. So like you said, we all like the higher minimum. So I'm all in on this bet.
Yeah, and that's the same for like the all turf pick 3s and stuff like that too. So bettors who are familiar with those will be familiar with looking out for that $5 pick 3 in at the All Stakes Woodbine 1 on Saturday. Mike, your pick in the Roses Are Red.
Louis Girl. But I would use some Rodeo Drive. I like her too. I would use her as an upset.
Okay, and then Adam.
I'm going to go 2 for 2. Here we go. Mikee and Minnie, Ray, you and I.
even though you were just like, I don't know if she's going to be that much value, you finally turned around. She's just the best horse in the race.
No, she's going to win the race. I don't know if I'm going to bet the race, but she is. I think she wins the race.
You're going to have to Mike and I are going to have to make a side wager with you and Ray.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go.
Pay up.
I'm just thinking if Mikee and Minnie is 3-5, 1-5, and all of her races as a 3-year-old, this is a spot where she could be, even money 6-5, and you can make an argument for a horse of her caliber that's not that bad of a bet. But 3 races through, we have 3 more coming up. We're going to take a 30-second timeout here on this North America Cup live roundtable presented by Diamond Creek Farm for none other than this. Would have expected a Diamond Creek ad on the Diamond Creek show. I certainly didn't. We're on to race number 9. Diamond Creek Farm, of course. I like to say your go-to, but they're also just one of the best. They're one of the best. I'm not just saying that because they sponsored this show. I'm saying that because Adam is gutsy enough to come on this show. We got
be wrong all the time.
Hey, I mean that. Anyone who puts their name on the line in that way in this handicapping game is a friend of ours.
It's fun.
Mohawk Gold Cup Grade 3. This is the first big free-for-all contest of the 2026 season. It's Irvin Hanover. He's one, John, that I was kind of thinking about in regards to the track being a little tiring after the rains. But at the same time, you watch how Dunn was racing him. Very clearly, the horse still had decent composure in the first start of the season. Only went as hard as he needed to in 49, but I think this is an interesting spot being second start off the bench for a horse that I thought got better the more he raced based on his performances last year. Out on the 9 hole here, does the talent really prevail, or is this a spot where maybe he's a bet against?
It could, and you know what? Last week at 3-5, you would have to argue that I think at least he was an overlay. I thought he would be much shorter. He did it relatively easily last time. It's not often you say a 3-5 shot's an overlay, but I really did think in that spot he proved to be. But I honestly looked at this race several times. This is a really, really good, field, and outside draw or not, he's still going to be involved in this race. But I just figured, like you said, Ray, we kind of see him. He's going to have a strong campaign, and we see him kind of thrive as the temperature gets a little bit cooler. He didn't necessarily start off all that sharp early on in his campaign last year. So while he is the one to beat without a doubt, he's one that I'm going to be looking to play against in this spot.
The horse I have the bet against him, I don't know that Mike is necessarily on board with, but again, that this is a situation where, Mike, I know you're probably looking, you see that 6-5 morning line and you're trying to eye who else could maybe try and snag it here, because post 9 is a big ask, second start off the bench for Irvin Hanover.
I've picked a lot of 4-year-olds so far. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I went Prince Hal Hanover. I loved his race last time at Northfield. I think he's very good over this racetrack. Also, he's got a ton of talent. And the fact that he was able to come from off the pace last time, which is typically not his MO, he's got some recency too over many of these. I'm interested in him getting back to this track, taking on Irvin Hanover. I mean, he's going to have to find some more speed, I think, and has to probably trip out to beat him. But he's just a horse that I'm interested in on the come a little bit. I mean, he's an extremely talented 3-year-old. He's been very sharp so far this year, and the fact that he raced so well last time from off the pace, let's see it again. This race typically gets wild, and you get some big upsets in this race also, so be not afraid. If you like a price in here, feel free to fire away, because we've seen, and I know John knows this too, there's been a lot of upsets in this race over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Mike's basically saying bet Captain Luke inside of this race then from the 10 hole, which, I mean, there could be merit to that. He's only had 3 starts and each one's been better. But my thought, because I'm in agreement with Mike that this race does tend to get wild, but my thought is on form and just probability of trip. I think this is a spot counter to how I felt in the Roses Are Red. I think Jason Bartlett gets a trip here with Coach's Corner. And I don't have much gripe with that Auger Invitational. He went first up inside of that race, only lost by under a half length. I think if anything, he might benefit from a few weeks off. But John, do you think maybe that's a bit off base if I'm trying to look against one like Irvin Hanover?
No, I think for me, I was curious to see what direction Jason was going to go to, whether it be Lou Hill or Coach's Corner. I'm curious to see, his decision and hear about his decision. I think both horses are really, really sharp. Look, that was a really tough trip for Coach's Corner, and just a horse that Jason Bartlett's gotten along with so well, has put forth some really good efforts. But look, Lou Hill's tripped out on a lot of these efforts, but he's sharp. I think we can't penalize horses who trip themselves out all the time when they do it so easily. This is a horse with a lot of talent. So I think those are definitely 2 horses that can definitely contend in this race. They draw well. I'm with Mike, though. I'm on Prince Hal Hanover. I think this is a horse, again, that showed me such a different dimension last time out. That, to me, even in defeat, I've never seen him close like that off the pace in quite some time. I mean, this is a horse that's so hard to pass. And I think this is a horse coming into this event razor sharp. So I'm curious to see what kind of approach Todd McCarthy is going to take. Doc Moore wants his horses driven aggressively. We know that. But interesting decision, though. I mean, this is a 4-year-old, as Mike alluded to. I believe there are 3 legs in the graduate before the final. And don't you, if I'm not mistaken, Adam, do you have to compete in 2 graduate legs if you do want to compete in the final? So leg 2 would have taken place tomorrow night at the Meadowlands. Doc Moore opting to bypass the graduate, which he did the first time for the Juravinsky, to compete here in the Mohawk Gold Cup. So I'm really curious to hear that, just him bypassing that. But I think that this is a horse that he really thinks can just compete all season long against the aged horses and doesn't need some confidence boosting, taking on his own kind.
Are you not at all concerned with what happens to him if he gets roughed up just based on that performance in the graduate where he gets picked off by II Captain Deo? That's the one. I know that he's a talented horse, and I agree he's a contender in this race, but just my confidence in him, I think, wanes a little bit because he got dealt fast fractions against 4-year-olds, and he's probably going to have to deal with that in this race.
That race fell apart.
Thank you for correcting me, because I did forget that I was in Sweden for that graduate leg, so I completely forgot about that one. He did compete in 1 leg, so I believe there is one more after, this weekend at the Meadowlands. But I'm not really concerned. I mean, he probably could have won. Honestly, in hindsight, he probably wins that race if he lets Bruno clear. I mean, arguably he does, where he picks up second at least, but he was still third in that contest despite, the way that they raced. And look, he's so good on the front end. I can't really fault Todd for wanting to do what he did, and Doc wants them raced. He knows the MO when you sit behind horses that Doc Moore trains. But again, I like what Kakeli did at Northfield, because Noble was the biggest wild card in that race. And what did he do? He left out of there, but it came at a price with him getting parked. So the fact that he showed so much interest off the pace, I think that it doesn't really matter what Todd McCarthy elects to do. I think this is a horse that's going to put forth a big effort, but I just feel like, taking a shot against Irvin Hanover in this spot, especially with this draw.
The 56-1 back half of the battle to me is what I expect a horse like Prince Al Hanover to do that. I'm not necessarily as enamored by it as you and Mike are coming into this.
He won a 26-second quarter, right? I mean, so like, what's
the horse isn't accustomed to closing the way he did.
But it's what I expect him to do, because even though he's on the lead, he's shown enough to me that he can be a good horse, period.
Yeah, he will be a good horse this week, too.
We've never seen him close off we've never seen him show that level of interest off a helmet than he did in that outing. So for me, that was a big eye-opener for me. It's not so much that he's a good horse. He's always been a good horse. He's never done what he did last time out. That, to me, shows some maturation here at 4.
We could have seen it if one driver who I'm not going to name got involved in last year's North America Cup. Beyond that, Adam, your turn inside this conversation. Of course, everything's around Irvin Hanover in a certain respect. He's probably going to be the favorite here, but this is a pretty stacked group. We haven't even mentioned a horse like Vukafalis, who's coming in here once more off a really fast mile at the Meadowlands. He's 20-1 on the morning line. Are there other ones that we're maybe sleeping on?
Yeah, I mean, that was the one that I was going to ask John, like, how does he end up 20-1 in this field? But I think you look down through these PPs and all I see is ones everywhere. So I think this gets mixed up like from the word go. I think Irvin Hanover's kind of in a bad spot being the 9-hole, wants to be on the lead, kind of controlled a lot of races last year. His qualifier was really good, but then I'm kind of like John. I didn't particularly care for his last race. Like, he did just enough. Prince Hal obviously sharp, and like you said, Doc Moore's going to want Todd to be super aggressive with him, like most of his horses. But there's so many horses as I look through here that want to do their work near the lead. So my guess is you see 4 or 5 lead changes, maybe in the first 5/8 of the mile, and possibly sets that up for these horses coming from the back. And I actually don't know who it is, but I mean, if Vukafalis is 20-1 on the morning line, like, he's super interesting if that's the number to play underneath.
Well, he's been one that struggled to come from off the speed. It seems like he's become a horse that you have to roll in that way, which, if anything, to your point, that ensures a pretty honest tempo inside this race. And Stratton's been conservative with him coming up here in the past, but it's been in defeats. John, if anything, that's an argument to be made for, this is a horse that's still looking for like this really big signature win, to my understanding. He's always been in the mix. He's still a stallion. Do we see Stratton maybe go no holds barred, even with the likes of Irvin Hanover?
I don't think he'll go no holds barred.
I
think he does understand it's a long season. And this is a horse that worked out a really, really tough trip a few starts ago. Actually, I believe he got parked the entire mile in one of his efforts at Pocono. So, again, that was a really good effort. 47-1, the fastest mile that we've seen pace so far this year. I just think he's not getting enough respect because of the competition that he was taking on, right? I mean, every other horse in here doesn't really stack that he's been taking on in his most recent tries. They wouldn't stack up all that well versus the group that he's going to be taking on. So I agree. Maybe he's being a bit overlooked off that sub 48 mile last time out, but I just think that he's probably getting penalized given the fact that he's been in overnights against maybe more inferior competition.
This is certainly interesting, almost in a way like the Armbro Flight, because you have some horses that have been racing on the Grand Circuit in these stakes, and then you have horses like, remember, the Alamo, who are inside of this race, and most of his races are in non-winners of, but he's able to go 49 change, 48 and change. That's going to be a pretty interesting race. I land on Coach's Corner. Mike, you're on Prince Hal. John's on Prince Hal, and Adam is on probably any horse that's double digits is kind of what I'm reading into that race.
Yes. I love Irvin Hanover. I think he's kind of a cool horse coming off championship, season last year. But I think if I'm going to pick a number, I'm probably going to land, maybe Lou Hill. Take the second pair horse.
Well, and one thing that we never think about in like pace meltdown situations is sometimes you still want to be that horse that's sitting like 4th or 5th, as Sean really likes your apartment, John. Because that's very clearly your apartment. And Lou Hill, if he goes forward, which also Doug McNair, you know that he wants to try and be aggressive. If that seam opens up at the inside off of fast fractions, that's another setup where you might be able to find that type of stalking closer push through. I think, like you said, it's tough to figure out who that is because, like, By the Missile hasn't really been himself. You could argue that if he is himself, it could be him. If you just want to say,
yeah, but he hasn't been himself in maybe 2 years, so he's probably not. Yeah.
Or you could just say screw it and go Captain Luke, like I said at the start, because why not? Inside of a race like this, he can come home in 25 and change if he wants, if he's feeling himself.
If Captain Luke wins from the 10 hole, then I'm going to switch my NA Cup bet to Andrew Harris.
Ooh.
Because if he can pull it off with Captain Luke, he certainly could pull it off with Brandon Boulevard.
And we get one race closer to that big discussion. The Fan Hanover Grade 1. Oh, that's just Adam. We want all of us here for this one. 3-year-old pacing fillies. I didn't lose the shirt buttons. Caroline missed that. The temperature has gotten even warmer since this show has been going. This is Luadipa versus the world to some extent. The world includes Be Perfect BG, who's putting her perfect streak on the line. Mike, this is a pretty nice toss-up between those two. I feel like makes an interesting case for Luadipa to not be 1-9 inside of this race. But do you think that an undefeated horse like Be Perfect BG makes any dent into that, either in the betting or even in the race itself?
Maybe, but the thing about Luadipa is she's just so much better than these horses, so much faster than these horses. So, and she loves this racetrack. I thought, last week was incredible. So, I mean, she went a middle half of 52-2. I'm not sure many of the Cup horses could do that. So, she's just the one here. Yeah, it's great to Be Perfect BG's in there, and you have to be leery of horses that have never lost, and that horse has never lost. So maybe we haven't seen the bottom of that one. She just, for me, take some money so we can get a little bit better value on Luadipa. But as far as any of the pick wagers, anything else, full single, don't need to use anything else. Just forget about it. Move on. Use her. Be done with it.
I remember, John, you texting me weeks ago, don't sleep on this beaten horse. And I was just like, I don't know who this beaten horse is, but okay. And then I saw her in the Fan Hanover, and I was just thinking about you. You come up in my mind a lot, John, and I'm not really going to go up any deeper inside of that. But you got this one that it seems like you're in love with against Luadipa, who we know is sensational. Do you think that she's up to the task against the Luadipa?
I think that she's a really, really strong filly, and I think she showed us that last year. I think that, Adam's probably been in the same situation before where you just have horses that you don't really know are going to be as good as they become, and I think they earn the right to take on horses of this caliber, and that's exactly what, Be Perfect BG has done. I mean, hasn't gotten beat to this point, but man, that is going to be an awfully tough test against Luadipa. I really wanted to pick Be Perfect BG in this Fan Hanover final. But what Luadipa did, that back half that she paced and was still able to draw away under a pretty tight hold to drive a Ronnie Wren, it's just awfully tough to go against, this Burke filly. And, she bounced back in a big way. She's never gotten beat in Canada to this point. And this is a filly that she literally looks like a colt. She's built like a colt, and she's got so much power and speed. And I think that she's going to prevail in this spot.
Well, and I think the other important thing to note is, as a 2-year-old, when she would speed away like that, she would drift in the stretch. I didn't see her do that, John. I saw her stay pretty straight.
Yeah, no, she looked really, really good. And again, that was a nice bounce back performance. It's sometimes I almost wonder, and I asked Ronnie Wren about this, is this just a filly that likes to go at top gear? Because we've seen her a couple times get beat. I'm not saying she was at her best, but she got beat by She's a Bulldog in the 3 Diamonds. And she wasn't going as quick as we've seen her go in the past, and she got picked off at Chester in her first start of the year. When she's asked to go in high gear, I almost feel like she just likes it a lot more rather than just kind of almost being lulled to sleep. But Ronnie Wren seemed to kind of just dismiss that notion. She got beat by a good filly in Miss Jum Jabber, who's really, really talented in her own right. But every time we see this filly just go into high gear, it's a joy to watch, and she puts forth such good efforts, in my opinion.
Obviously, Adam, you guys must be thrilled to see yet another really nice horse out of none other than or I guess by none other than Sweet Lou himself. But of course, in a betting game, we know she's going to take a lot of money. But are you kind of the same ilk, thinking that an undefeated filly and Be Perfect BG might make Lua Deepa a really nice bet here?
Back to what you were saying about drifting in the stretch. I mean, she's the kind of filly, Lua Deepa. If somebody's on her outside at the top of the stretch, I think she's beatable. I think if she's kind of freewheeling and kind of pick her path, I think she does not get beat. So to me, the only flaw in her armor, or only Achilles heel, is you got to put somebody beside her. But if you're going to pace a middle half in 52, I don't think there's anybody that can do that. So, in that sense, she probably wins the race if she's anything like she was last week. And then, of course, by Sweet Lou, rooting interest there. We actually bred and retained the 9 horse in this, and we raced her with Brian Brown last year. And then I ended up selling her, near the end of the season to Andrew Harris in that group. So, which we don't do very often. And kind of looking back on it, I'm like, why'd I do that? But, money's money and you got to pay the bill sometimes. So, obviously she's by Down by the Seaside. Lua Deepa's by Sweet Lou. So we got a couple rooting interests in this one. But I think if you're going to pick against those top 2 fillies, I like Jack's filly. She always seems to be in the mix. She's not flashy by any means. She's just kind of a workhorse. And, for a long shot, I don't think she can win, but I'm going to maybe play her underneath Lua Deepa.
I find it interesting. We've only done so many of these handicapping shows, and yet you and I are on the same page a decent amount of time. I've loved Dea.
That's probably not a good thing for me. I don't know.
I was going to say for me. But
yeah, or you.
I thought Dea never did anything wrong as a 2-year-old. I never thought she was as good as some of the other 2-year-olds, but she's one of those fillies who at a number I think can sneak onto the ticket. And I was encouraged to see her slip up the inside the way she did to grab second last time. Granted, against a Clean Deal, who I don't really have too much to say about. But Dea was the only one to make it beyond like taking Perfect Thought, who is a bit precarious because she's known to throw in steps inside of her races. She was really good in winning her elimination last week, but sometimes when the big money comes up on the line and the trip doesn't shape out, she's a little fragile. You have to kind of work with her. But I thought that was an interesting note you made, Adam, because what you're describing in the speed, that's very thoroughbred like of your assessment of Lua Deepa.
Really?
Yeah, because
she is that way. So,
well, because at least when I look at 6 furlong races and stuff like that, and typically in flats in general, getting a loose lead is way more potent than being battled against. And in harness, I've only noticed that be so much the case. I've especially just noticed it more in the thoroughbreds. So that's something.
Well, Bulldog was that way a little bit. Like the only times he ever got beat is when horses, especially as he got older, was when a horse was outside of him or really put some pressure on him and he had to do work. If he was able to freewheel on the lead, he was unbeatable. And I think she's a little bit like that, a little bit under pressure around that final turn and isn't allowed to kind of pick her path coming down the stretch. Like you might see somebody beat her.
We'll definitely have to keep that in mind with how that race plays out. I'm on Lua Deepa, though, nonetheless,
so
because that engine could make all of that worthless. As we're on the big one now, $1 million Canadian, but that's still a lot of money. So I'm not going to scoff at that. North America Cup, XLIII, Zlee, also known as 43. Bojangles, no longer undefeated. Many people think he's done. He's over with. No more. Because odds on Mr. Mamba is now in town. Off of that big win from the center of the track, as alluded to earlier in the show. I wonder how much, with how the track surface was, him drifting out to that path helped him get by Brandon Boulevard. But one important thing to note here, Adam, to give you first word, I notice a lot of Sweet Lou's. I notice a lot Down by the Seasides inside of this race.
Yeah, I'm not complaining at all. I mean, I'm driving up for it. Going to have dinner with the CEO of Woodbine, Mohawk, so that'll be kind of fun for me. Maybe get a good seat and root on our horses. But we actually filmed our podcast today, picking winners of this race. It's going to come out tomorrow. But after the draw, before the draw came out, I was kind of iffy about where I was going to go. But once the draw came out, I'm going to land on Bojangles. I think he bounces back. I think he gets the trip he wants. And obviously he's not by one of our sires, but still picking that horse. So I'll say this. I wouldn't be sad if he lost, because it likely means one of our sires ends up winning the race. But he's the horse to beat. He'll be low. He'll be short odds. He's probably not a good bet, if you're looking to make money on the race. But to me, he's the most likely winner.
Yeah, John, this is one of those interesting cases where just like the horse's identity, less than the form and the form they're coming into the race from, will impact the odds, because I feel like most like seasoned handicappers are just like day in, day out race trackers, see a horse like that lose and then immediately want to try and go against it. But he has this whole body of work to also consider inside of this race. And you made a really specific note earlier of, in these elimination races, these drivers, they sometimes choose to drive their horse in a very specific way to battle test them, so to speak. And I think we kind of saw that from Bojangles, whether advertently or inadvertently, given the quirks he's shown when it comes to trying to clear horses and even sometimes trying to pick up speed. So I'm kind of curious, you, especially as a Canadian, if you can separate that part of yourself, what's your assessment of Bojangles inside of this spot? And obviously that center gate draw with so much speed surrounding him, what happens here?
It was definitely inadvertently, right? And I think that there was probably, just a lot that went on in that elimination. And look, we've seen Bob on several occasions float out of there with ease, power move to the lead, make front, and take matters into his own hands, and just, be able to control things with relative ease the rest of the way in several races. Now, albeit that was against OSS Gold Company, this trying that, move in this spot, it was against, obviously horses that are vying for the opportunity to compete and race in the $1 million event in the Pepsi North America Cup. But you could make several different ways. You could say, yeah, maybe Bob should have, been 100 off the car and go to the lead and control things. Or maybe you can sit here and say that, did you expect, maybe a horse 50 or 60 to 1 to stick a horse like Bojangle in that spot, to go a big third quarter in that spot? I mean, I think you can look at it several different ways. Or maybe Bojangles just wasn't at his best, because even though they were doing some pacing, you still kind of expect them to maybe want to go by. But I don't want to be too hard on the Colt in the sense that that was just a really, really tough trip. Again, you don't really see the types of moves by horses in that particular spot or of those particular odds stick a horse like Bojangles. It was just a situation where it was just an unlucky trip. Things happen. It wasn't inadvertent, but I'll tell you what, that was the fastest mile that he paced that he was a part of in his career. So I think that's something that's only going to benefit him going into this Saturday night's finals. And look, he drew great. It was between the 5 hole and the 8 hole. He got the 5.
It was the 5 and the 10.
No, it was the 5 and the 8, I believe. Brandon Boulevard assumed that position pretty early, but it was between the 5 and the 8 hole. He ended up getting the 5 hole. Doc cited it as his lucky number. Look, there's going to be an opportunity here for redemption. Now, I've looked at this race so many different ways. I don't know how you guys have looked at it, but I really do expect Bojangles to be aggressively handled in this spot. I think that, Bob's not going to want to be in a spot where he probably, handles this colt the way that he got handled last time out. Again, that wasn't what he wanted or intended. It's just, that's how the trip worked out. It was just an unfortunate trip, but at the same time, you handle him aggressively. I think you run the risk of obviously some other horses having the opportunity to pace really, really well late in the mile. And there's a couple in here that definitely can do that, specifically being an odds on Mr. Mamba. That was just, I don't think people you guys do, but the fact that he was drifting out so wide and still was able to get there, to me, that's incredible. He's the fastest horse in here for a piece. Can he carry that speed all throughout the mile like a couple other horses can, or like a Bojangles can? Probably not, but he doesn't need that if he's going to be in a stalking position in what's likely going to be a really quick half. But somebody's going to throw a wrench into this race. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on who
Dougie
could be.
And Jason.
I honestly agree. Look, I think no wait list in this spot. I think he definitely could be. Is Al Pappy going to take back? Do you guys think he's going to take back?
No, I think Yannick drives on hard with him.
Yeah.
I think he wants to put him close up.
I think he takes it he wants to sit close. I think he takes the lead as a last resort, because what's interesting, John, I don't know if you got to talk to him about this, because before the elimination, he had to go back to the paddock because his overcheck broke.
Yeah.
And then they repaired the overcheck, and the entire time he's racing, throwing his head.
Never look comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah. And he still goes that mile. Once Sweet Love and Lou passes him, he re-engages, holds off No Weightless and Azrael Blue Chip, which obviously that as a benchmark is tricky because I thought they were kind of level no matter what. But it seemed like he was at least able to stay up to the elimination winner. And so that raises the question of if he's actually comfortable and moving, and we saw how good he was in the Breeders' Crown final last year, it seems like he wants to at least try and just sit close and have a chance at first shot.
Yeah, he could, but I don't know. Again, I'm really curious to see what Bob elects to do in this spot. But I think given the adversity that, he along with the Colt had to take, over the past several days, whether you think it's warranted or not, I think that they're probably going to be in a position, or I'm assuming he wants to be in a position where I think they're going to want to go down swinging ultimately. Like, you know what I mean? Go down swinging. If you feel like you've got the best horse, go down swinging, because we've seen so many good horses get themselves locked in this race. I mean, you can't run the risk of somebody clearing and then wanting to remove because you may never get an opportunity to remove. I mean, look at Captain Albano. He had a choice to drive on. He wanted to follow a contender in Captain's quarters. He never saw the light of day. He ended up being the best colt in the division by year's end. But that was a race that, stands out a lot to obviously guys like Noel Daly, Todd McCarthy. I'm sure if they could do it over again, he would have gone down swinging, but he never got that opportunity. So if you're the best colt and you feel like you got the best colt, you've got to drive him like he is the best, and you got to just go down with a fight for me.
Not really Bob's MO though, is it, John? I mean, he typically is extremely patient with every one of his drives, and so we'll see.
It's who you're driving for, as we mentioned. You have to know who you're driving for. That's how Doc wants us. You put horses on the front, Doc will take the blame himself. But there are times where if you give horses a tough chip or race them off the pace, he might point the blame at others. So Doc doesn't mind if horses get beat if they're raced with aggression. So
I think if he gets raced with aggression, he's going to go down, and he's going to go down like he did last week. And he's never, he was a great 2-year-old. He obviously was 12 for 12 horse of the year. But this year it was cupcakes early, and of course he's won the 50 and all those races, and now he had to actually get a challenge last week, and I don't really think that he was up to it. And maybe he's not quite the 3-year-old that he obviously was a 2-year-old. So now he's going to be a short price again. Everyone's going to buy he's going to come back and he's going to be better and he's going to be driven aggressively. Well, but that was his toughest race, and he really didn't respond. He didn't look nearly the boss that he has looked so far up until this point. And now the win streak's gone. The mustard's off the hot dog a little bit now, and he's a short price again. I don't want him whatsoever. I hope he gets raced aggressively. I hope he doesn't hit the board, honestly. And I'm not rooting against connections or anything, but I'm betting. I'm here to bet this race, and I'm looking at a better price on odds on Mr. Mamba here because of Bojangles being in the race. I'm looking at a better price on Brandon Boulevard in here because of his post and because Bojangles is in the race. So if you're looking to bet, I think the value is fading Bojangles in this race. I'm hoping he gets roughed up. I'm hoping that they go after it because that just makes an easier time for the horses that I do like in the race. And I don't think that Al Poppy's going to go down. He's one that's going to be raced aggressively, and he's has upset potential in my mind. So you want to take a shot against Bo. Again, I said it last week. I'm not red boarding. I didn't like him last week. I don't like him this week. So whoever wants to eat chalk on him, be my guest. I'll take odds on Mr. Mamba on top, and I'll play around with some of the others in the exotics.
See, I'm in at least agreement with you. I have Al Poppy on top because I think he's the best bet inside of the race. Odds on Mr. Mamba, he's still going to be somewhat short, but I respect what he has to offer inside of this, and especially with how scrappy it's probably going to be early. That James is going to want to try and just find that toe, find that helmet, and then from there, it's the question of can he do that again? How much do you believe him to be that good of a rocket once more, especially being the fastest 2-year-old to ever pace a mile in harness racing history? Like, there are a bunch of really interesting storylines that are weaving together inside of this race that come down ultimately to just what do you believe this horse to be? But
Ray, watch him coming off the turn. He looked like he was going to run them over. It was crazy how fast this horse was coming. And then he drifted out a little bit and then righted himself and was still able to win. I mean, he was ultra impressive in my opinion.
It's hard not to be a fan of Bojangles. Of course, myself getting a chance to cover him and watch him and, watch him win race after race and obviously capture divisional honors, horse of the year honors. But I remember telling people, I honestly thought the only horse that had an opportunity or a chance to beat Bojangles was, odds on Mr. Mamba. And he did all those things, and I'm not going to take anything away from the year he had. He had an exceptional year. He earned it in those races. but he also never took on one of the colts that I thought was obviously would have been his biggest counterpart. And in their first meeting, it was odds on Mr. Mamba who was able to prevail. And I'm just, people got a chance to see just how fast this colt really is. And James McDonald certainly got a chance to, see firsthand himself. I'm curious to see, though, about trips again, as I mentioned. Like, it's so fascinating to hear, Melanie Wren talk about why she thought James was going to be a perfect fit for this colt, because I don't think it's a surprise that James McDonald, got to drive with the horse of this caliber, because he drives great horses all year, every year. But with some other options, sideline, not having elimination drives, I thought maybe they would have opted to go in a different route. But it's interesting that they wanted to go with James McDonald, because they cited as, we knew he would drive him a certain way, handle him conservatively, and give him a trip where he's going to be able to capitalize off that late kick. Knowing how good he was late in the mile, I'm really curious to see how James wants to maneuver this, because look, he might be able to sit back and just watch the action unfold, uncork that late kick. And if he's as good as he was last week and straighter, which you have to figure he's going to be, because we saw him warming up at Mohawk, and it looked like they did add, I think, a burr pole to him. So he should be able to steer a lot straighter. This Saturday you would have to assume, but who's going to be following Bojangles in that spot? Because I almost feel like that's one of the more aspired trips, because if he takes an approach where, for example, he wants to be aggressive, he won't let anybody clear, is that not a horse you want to follow? Because regardless if he takes all contenders, he's going to take you where you want to go, you would have to think.
Well, and the at least the appeal of Bojangles' speed and becomes a question of stamina in my mind. If you remember, John, in that elimination, when when the horse finally was like, "Okay, Bob, I'll do what you want me to do," and he goes outside, the horse picks up like a rocket after Gentleman's Club. And I think the only reason why he didn't clear is because McCarthy's horse then swelled once headed and actually wanted to pick up. McCarthy actually was kind of trying to let Bojangles go, and he couldn't. So that kept him out even longer.
If you're the horse of the year, you better go past the 50-1 shot. I'm sorry.
But don't you guys, what I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts, though. Don't you almost think, like, did you guys really expect Brandon Boulevard? I know from post-day, did you expect him to take back in that spot? Like, it ended up being a perfect storm for so many horses. Ones like Brandon Boulevard, odds on Mr. Mamba. But, like, did you really expect him to take back in that spot? Like, it nearly worked out for him, but it was actually just amazing how everything seemed to work out.
I think he was following Bo in the race.
I was going to say, and Adam, you can attest to this too. I believe Dexter looked at that race as Bo is the best horse. He's the one I want to follow.
Yeah, and I probably would do the same thing in that spot. Now, circling back to what John was talking about, like odds on Mr. Mamba, a little bit like Confederate was a couple of years ago, like fast, probably just faster than the group that he was with. But sometimes you run into these situations where, like, maybe you find the horse that you want to follow, and then somebody else pulls first over, and you're not second over, and you're third over, and there's a jump at the front, and you end up. Yeah, and you end up. Yeah, exactly. I'm not pissed at all about it, but but sometimes the best horse doesn't win this race. Sometimes the fastest horse doesn't win this race just because they want a specific setup, and they follow the wrong horse, and somebody else kind of gets in the way. And likely in these spots when you're going for $1 million, somebody's going to do something as you look through here that shocks everybody, right? Like Malillo leaving from the rail for position, or does Jason fire out of there with Burke's other horse to set it up for some of the other ones? Like, somebody's going to do something in this spot that's kind of surprising. Does Dexter just fire out of there with Brandon, put him on the front, and try to get and try to wait for Bo to come and sit behind him? I don't know, but something's going to happen, I think.
Well, and that's an interesting situation for Dexter, because everything you're saying, I'm thinking what Braxton did last year with Madden Oaks to almost win in this race. Like, we knew Madden Oaks was a good horse, but I don't think of him sitting behind those fractions being even close inside of that race. And this is that kind of race where you see those types of performances uncoil. That can apply to a Bojangles, it can apply to odds on Mr. Mama, but Dexter's an interesting case because I don't look at him as precocious as a Braxton Boyd, where he's looking at this as $1 million race. I got a good horse, I'm going to go for it, especially with in mind his best race, his marquee race, fastest race ever in Canada. He was sitting off the speed. But Adam, he's in a situation where from post 10, I mean, I suffered this with David Miller and Prince Hal last year. If you take back to last, you're done in this race.
Yeah, you might as well just turn around and go back to the barn. But like, I think he has to leave and at least see what the horses inside, the few inside. Like, is Yannick going to leave with Papi? Is Andrew going to leave? Probably not with the 7 horse, and probably the 9 horse leaves a little bit too. Dougie's horse leaves, but yeah, I think you have to act like you're going to go to the front from the 10 hole, and maybe there versus some of the other big tracks, you get the little bit of a run into the first turn, so you do have time to get over there. And if some of these horses outleave Bo, it puts Bob in a real tough position on what you're going to do.
Right.
I think it's pretty fascinating, though, that we've spoken so long about this final, and it's a really good final. We can map it out several different ways. We've still yet to mention the other elim winner, Sweet Love and Lou, right? I mean, that's but like, it's fascinating. I know the fixation is on Bojangles and odds on Mr. Mamba. I think obviously one horse, looking to bounce back after what was a perfect campaign, and odds on Mr. Mamba with an eye-catching stretch rally. But, it just sucks for, a Brandon Boulevard drawing post 10. I don't know what Dex is going to want to do, but I can't imagine it's going to be a good trip. But here's Sweet Love and Lou with a great post, a great elimination victory, a colt that seems to be on an upwards trajectory. I mean, look, it's a great problem to have for James. But James is going to take the horses that he feels like are going to give him the best opportunity to win. And when you get to the level of a driver that James McDonald is, and we've seen that with guys like Dexter Dunn and others, loyalty goes out the window. Like, it doesn't matter. You take the best horse that you feel like gives you the best opportunity to win. And right now he probably feels like it's, odds on Mr. Mama, but Sweet Love and Lou, I mean, he developed from day one. He was his pilot from start number 1. He kind of handled him, a certain way. He was so aggressive. He was so tough to handle. And this is a colt that Dan Legacy has done an exceptional job bringing along, and James McDonald has been along for the ride to help with just that. This is a really, are we overlooking him a little bit as an elimination winner? Have we ever seen an elim winner maybe be this overlooked in quite some time?
Well, my main issue is what price is he going to be? Because he was 3 to 5 in the elimination, and of just how this race shakes up. The engine on odds on Mr. Mamba just seems more potent in how the race can play out. Sweet Love and Lou does have a nice kick, but I don't know about you. 2 starts ago, I thought he was in like a really good position to get second over no wait list, but it didn't really read to me as like that much class, at least compared to like what a Bojangles can do at his best, odds on Mr. Mamba can do at his best. But he was 3rd in the Metro, so to that point, you might be right.
He did finish underplaying. He did finish second 2 starts ago. He got up ahead of no wait list. He got up.
No, but my point was just visually, like, he had an inside trip. No wait list was already gapping out, so he was getting kind of aired out. So he was the next logical one to have saved enough energy to just go by. Like, it just seemed like there wasn't really anything to glean off of that in terms of ability. It was just how the race shaped. It shaped in his favor to get second behind Brandon Boulevard, and even then, I thought it was just an even race.
He's got to step up. He's got to step up to beat these horses. Period.
He won in 48. He won in 48 and 2 last time out. I mean, this is. I don't think this colt. I mean, he's never.
Well, he was first up. That's the most important thing. He was first up in that race against Papi, and he cruised up there. But that was a situation where I couldn't really tell what James had left.
Where would he have finished in the other elimination? That's what I want to know.
I think he would have been competitive in there without a doubt.
Would he have been top 3?
He might have been with the way the mile shaked out. Yeah,
maybe not. But I mean, the fact that you even have to think about it tells you all you need to know.
No. With the way the mile shaked out, I really do think he would have been top 3.
So then, what was Bo 4th or 5th in that race then? Because I mean,
listen. If we're talking hypotheticals, what happens if Sweet Love and Lou has Brandon Boulevard's trip? We don't know, right? I mean, but I just think that we're not giving Sweet Love and Lou enough respect, personally, because you guys mentioned it. 3rd in the Metro last year. Nobody talked about this colt all last year, and it's funny again. He wins as a limit. Nobody's talking about him now. I'm not saying that. There's tiers, right? I don't think he's on the same level of tier as like a Bojangles or odds on Mr. Mamba right now. I think they're probably in a tier on their own. And look, maybe as Andrew Harris says, you can throw in a Brandon Boulevard. Maybe he's a little bit under the radar without a doubt. He's one that definitely doesn't get enough respect, but I still think that's the same for Sweet Love and Lou. And he has a great post. And Scott, I don't know what he's going to do, and he seems to be able to map out a good trip. He's the, probably the most logical if he wants to work out a trip behind Bojangles. If they're both going to be leaving out of there, he might be the best bet in terms of him working out that particular trip.
Something else to keep in
John,
mind,
he's definitely the least flashy. Like Bo's the big, strong horse of the year, and odds on Mr. Mom is just freaky fast. you know, we ended up selling this colt for partners as a yearling, you know, 2 years ago, and you could just feel like we actually tried to buy into him after we sold him, but he's just kind of a cool horse to be around.
Yeah.
But he's not flashy in any way. And like you said, Dan's done a great job and James has done a good job with him. And he probably is the sleeper if you're looking for value in this race.
Yeah, without it. Like I said, I think that this horse, because he doesn't have the signature wins that some of these other colts have. I just don't think this is one that gets a lot of respect. But he had to be driven a certain way because of some of his quirks as a 2-year-old. But he looks. I mean, James cited him as 2 fingers. He looks just that when he goes out there. I mean, he handled him first over. He didn't look a little bit erratic. It seems like you can do a lot more with him now versus what you could do with him last year. Because do you remember that start at Red Mile? James had to start him up early, and he just went gung-ho to the half. James really couldn't hold him. He was really, really strong in the mouth. He was a bit of a head case at times. Again, this was a horse with a lot of talent, but a bit of a project horse here, for Dan Legacy. A good problem to have, a quote-unquote project horse with really, really high speed and a big-time ability. So I just, I think that we wouldn't be doing him justice by not giving him enough, respect, because this is a really, really good colt.
Sure. I at least also have in mind 2 starts ago in that Sun Beach somewhere, he was also kind of washed. And on a big night like this, that's especially something you want to watch out for when you have that big crowd. Weather, I didn't check, but I'm assuming it's hot, no rain, humid. That's what it seems like.
Canada, there's probably snow.
Well, especially then he's going to be sweating his balls off. He's a colt, right? So those are other negatives that, at least at this point in time, have me rating others higher, because I mean, he was able to finish second under those circumstances, but in a lower class race than the North America Cup. But I feel like if you're kind of under that stress and stuff like that on the big stage, that could be something of concern inside of a spot like this. But let's circle back here, because this is, I think we touched on a lot of really key points inside of this, and we can button this up inside the scope of that $5 all stakes pick 3 that Woodbine is offering. Roses are red, Fan Hanover, North America Cup. I already know mine. I'm singling Mikee and Minnie. I'm singling Luadipa, and then I'm taking 3 in the North America Cup. I'm taking Mamba, taking Jangles, I'm taking Poppy. Mamba, Jangle, Poppy. Mamba, Jangle, Poppy. More in the order of Poppy, Mamba, Jangle. But that's not how it works inside of that. Mike, your final thoughts on the North America Cup, as well as that alluring $5 pick 3.
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to fade Bo, mostly out of the try. I think there's a lot of value there. The $5 pick 3, I think, is a fantastic bet, and I'm definitely interested in that for sure. Louis Girl is a big A for me in that first leg. I would probably use a little Rodeo Drive Deo, though, as a price. If you can get that horse down in that pick 3, it's going to be crazy. Even if Luadipa wins, and that's where most of my money would go there. Luadipa, I don't want anybody else in that race. And then I'm fading Bo. I would use odds on Mr. Mamba. I would use Brandon Boulevard, who I think is going to get lost on the board from this post for sure. And I'll use some Poppy also, just to see if this horse can find a way to get a trip at a huge number. If all the big contenders flame out, he's the one that I want to have. If I can hit that pick 3, especially for $5, it's going to pay stacked. So I'm loving the higher minimum, loving the idea for Woodbine. I'm just excited to really watch this entire night.
John, your final thoughts, and then touch on that pick 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna, just hope that Bo can redeem himself in that final. But I think that he's got a lot going for him as well. But I think that some other horse, it's going to be a great race. But I'm going to just stick with Bo and hope that he can, bounce back. But pick 3 for me. I mean, I like Louis Girl, I like Luadipa, and I like Bo. But I think if I want to try and find some value and get a little bit creative, I mean, there's an opportunity where maybe, like Mike mentioned, I include a horse like Rodeo Drive Dale, maybe add a couple extra in that North America Cup. I think I feel comfortable going all in on Louis Girl. I think that's definitely a mare that I don't mind relying on in that spot. But if I do play a ticket where I go Rodeo Drive Dale on top, I'll use some extras in that North America Cup final just in case.
And then Adam, given that this is presented by Diamond Creek, I figure you get the last word.
I get to go last, yeah.
Nice. Last word is what everyone waits for.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to go to the window with this ticket, but I'm probably Mikee and Minnie in the first leg with the last martini as a little bit of a number. I'm singling Luadipa, and then I'll go Bojangles and Brandon Boulevard in the NA Cup.
Wow, you think Brandon can do it from all the way out there?
Give him some price.
Like I said, if Captain Luke comes through, I'm certainly going to go that way.
This is just another instance where next time I run into Bruce Airman, if it happens, he's going to go, "What did I tell you? What did I tell you?" That's why we love him.
And they're good for the sport if they can pull this off. Even better.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Mad Noakes could almost do it. Not that he was a bad horse, but Post 10 is infamously goose-egged.
He's got a shot.
Race. And with however the speed unfolds,
there's a first time for everything, Ray. First time for everything.
To do that, and you want to be the one betting on that and hope that for whatever reason that first time is not 4 to 5. That does it. Again, I think Al Papi's an interesting price in that race, but the North American Cup, this is a really great horse race in general because we know Bojangles has a lot of talent. He's been showing that his entire career. Odds on Mr. Mamba the same. And now like two shooting stars, they collide into one big supernova where only one will be the winner or the champion of some capacity. But you never know what they can do. I mean, everyone knew Some Beach Somewhere was a good horse, but when he pulled away from that whole field, that crowd erupted. And maybe there's a performance like that sitting in the holster of one of these 10. Who knows? That's the fun of harness racing, I think. It's also cashing the tickets. And if Al Papi wins, that's definitely going to blow everything. You can have two favorites and then Al Papi, and that $5 pick 3 is going to pay boatloads. But that does it for this live roundtable. Thank you, of course, to Adam Bowden of Diamond Creek Farm as well for sponsoring the show, helping us do shows like this to create handicapping content for the big races in the sport that for whatever reason it's hard to get people to want to make this content for, but it's important because no one's having these conversations. No one's talking about these horses in these ways and talking about like mapping through the betting windows and so on and so forth. But of course, Adam, Diamond Creek also doing a bunch of other exciting things. At the start of the show, we mentioned you guys reviving your podcast, Creekside Chat, trying to give people a more inside look on the harness racing game from your vantage point. You're very inside. You make the horses we bet on, and that's interesting enough. I've really liked this format you guys have been doing where you've been taking these somewhat esoteric questions about mares and I forget what the one before the mare one was, but I really like that one too. I'm not BSing you. But I think that a lot of people, if they go to the Diamond Creek Farm YouTube channel, they'll be able to learn a lot about the sport from you guys who very clearly, you got skin in the game and you know how to articulate it.
I got a lot of skin. A lot of it's on the ground too.
Ooh.
It's come off over the years.
That I imagine is from the sunburns more than anything of being out.
I'm sunburned when I walk outside of the car, so there's that too. That's why I like this night racing. It's much better for me.
Yeah. I mean, even I'm still sweating bullets. Thank you. I saw Bones of. I was like, who is that? That's Caroline.
What?
I said, Bones of what?
Nice.
Do I want to know? No, but we're immensely thankful because we want this type of stuff to exist, and of course to give people like John Rallis yet another platform to spout your. Can we call it knowledge, John? Is that
He's
fair?
everywhere. It's great.
Yeah.
I don't know what we call it at this point, but no, it's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully I can provide some insight in the paddock for everybody as well. I think definitely it's important. I think doing these, types of shows and, just having more outlets to talk harness racing is obviously a great thing. There's so much talent that we've got in North America, but I do think we need to start hearing from the participants a little bit more. And I think that they're very, very willing to do so and, share information about their horses. So that's something that I'm going to try and provide a little bit more on what's going to be a big wagering card and see if I can provide, the little extra. And just to remind you, Ray, though, actually, Sweet Love and Lou was washed out quite a bit. That's been something of him that's taken place since his 2-year-old campaign. So it's quite normal for him.
Quite normal, but nonetheless, still, I think something that you just want to keep note of.
Yeah, keep note of. But nevertheless, I do think it's going to be a great night of racing. And, hopefully everybody can have a lot of fun watching and have, some success at the windows because the wagering opportunities are great too. $5 pick 3, mandatory pick 6. Mandatory jackpot high 5, $200,000 pick 5s, I believe, guaranteed, one of them being an all stakes pick 5. So while we're going to have a lot of fun watching the talent on display, it's a stellar wagering menu every year, and this year's no different, especially with the addition of that $5 pick 3 minimum with a 15% takeout.
And Mike, we do these shows enough. We know that you're excited.
Absolutely. Give me more of these $5 bets. Give me more of these mandatory payouts. Give me more of these big fields and these stakes cards. So this is just the first of many this summer, and we'll be back on it. So here we go.
Mike, pick some restaurants, Mike. So when Adam and Ray have to team up and take us out after Louis gets
they are gonna owe us after this.
Start looking.
That does it for this Harness Players Podcast live roundtable. Of course, thank you to Mikey P, John Rallis. And if you see Adam Bowden on site at Woodbine Mohawk Park, you may witness the first person to suffer a moon burn, for all we know. This has been a production of In the Money Media. Thank you to Diamond Creek. If they can put up with that, we know they are great partners in crime here for the sport of harness racing. I'm Ray Cotolo. We look forward to more Harness Players podcasts to come. Of course, Meadowlands Pace right around the corner. That's a race I know Adam definitely cherishes. I know I cherish it because of that huge exacta with Hungry Angel Boy. But then, of course, we're already just
that's what we needed.
Under 2 months away from the Hambletonian. That's it for this show. Thank you. Good night.